Welcome to the College Admissions Process Podcast presented by Prep Expert. Prep Expert offers live online SAT and ACT courses with the best score guarantees, instructors, and curriculum. Go to prepexpert.com to guarantee your child's success. I'm also excited to share my book, Straight from the Admissions Office, a review of my biggest takeaways from the first few hundred podcast episodes. It's packed with direct insights from admissions professionals and practical tips to help students and their families navigate the college admissions process. You can find all of the information in the show notes. Welcome to The Cap, where we are here to speak with college reps and other professionals in the field of college admissions to help answer all your questions and guide you through every step of the process. So if you're serious about college admissions, you've come to the right place. Are you ready? Let's talk about it. And now, here's your host, Dr. John Durante. Welcome to The Cap, the College Admissions Process Podcast. I am your host, John Durante, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome back Chris Richards, who's the Director of Admissions at the University of Maine. Now, Chris was with us back on episode 83, which was released in December of 2022. Chris, that was a long time ago. It's so good to see you. So glad to have you back. How are you?
I'm good, John. It warmed my heart to be invited back. I am having a hard time accepting the fact that was that long ago because it seems like just yesterday. It really does. But I guess time flies when you're having fun. So.
Yeah, I guess we're definitely having fun because time definitely flies. I can't believe that was December of 2022, but here we are back again. And again, we appreciate you being here, Chris. So since our last conversation, have there been any notable changes or developments at the University of Maine that prospective students and their families should know about?
Yeah, quite a few things have happened. It's when I was sitting down kind of thinking about reflecting on what has happened since 2022, I'm not sure I'm going to remember all of it, honestly. We've been very fortunate in the past few years to have some pretty incredible milestones happen at the institution. We were going right around the time we had done the podcast. We had either just earned or were in the process of becoming an R1 Carnegie ranked research institution. And we have gone through our first approval or renewal of R1 status. And that's all been certified and it's good to go, which is really exciting. I had never been through that before, anything like that, and had not a crazy part in it, but being certified as R1 is one thing, but to be renewed apparently seemed to be an even harder and more significant undertaking for the school. So we're really proud about that. We've also had a significant amount of investment at the institution. Harold Alfond Foundation, which is very well known here in Maine, really has stepped up and provided an incredible amount of generosity to the institution for a variety of purposes. Investments in infrastructure in our engineering college, and a lot of investment actually in our athletic programs. So when I say a lot, I mean, we're talking approaching $350 million in investment in the institute. Yeah, significant. So what's great about it is here at UMaine, we carry a unique set of responsibilities, I think, to our state that some institutions might not have. We are Maine's university, so to speak. And so we host a variety of activities on campus for K-12 systems and all these things. So we're seeing new facilities, entirely new softball stadium, new turf on the football field. They're putting $50 million worth of renovations into the Harold Alfond Arena, which, if there's any college hockey sports fans out there, the Alfond Arena is one of them. If you like hockey, you have to get to a game at Alfond Arena at the University of Maine, and it's an incredibly storied facility. So to see those investments in those facilities, obviously for our athletic programs, but with the mindset of the greater support of the institution as a whole. We'll find improved facilities for regular students and usage of these intramural athletics and part of the student life experience. And so that's been incredible. We've had a couple new academic programs launched as well. We now have a bachelor's program in criminal justice. I would say that was one of the most asked about programs in my career here that we couldn't say yes to having. That just happened a couple of months ago. So we'll actually look to bring in our first cohort this fall with that program. And we've had some wonderful recruitment cycles, actually, despite some of the challenges in higher ed. And so yeah, it's an exciting place to be right now. It really is.
Well, it definitely sounds really exciting, and there's been a lot of milestones. You just renewed your R1 Carnegie ranked research institution status, which is amazing. You said that you received an investment of close to a third of $1 billion. That's what it'd be,
Yeah,
$1 billion, which is incredible. And thanks to that, I'm sure there's a lot of new facilities, as you mentioned, new academic programs. And I love how you put it. You are Maine's university. And that actually brings me, Chris, to the next question in terms of institutional priorities, because we know that they play a large role in shaping admissions decisions.
yeah.
So, what can you share about the University of Maine's institutional priorities, and what should students and families keep in mind about how these priorities influence admissions decisions at the college in general?
Yeah. So I think any student going through the search process, I actually just did a parent night the other night to a local high school here in Maine to sophomores. Do a ton of junior nights. I don't do very many sophomore nights. And it was really interesting to try to think that far back in the process. What should students think about? And I think as students are reflecting on colleges, they really need to look at what are their priorities. How do they imagine their college search process? What do they view their college experience being? What do they want to do? Not necessarily, I want to do this specific job, but that may be part of it. That varies student to student, but whatever your priorities are, whether they be goals you have, passions you have, the things that make you as a person, and then finding the institutional fit is so big, and trying to match that up the best you can. If you're a very environmentally conscious person, then you might want to look at, you know, frankly, a school like UMaine that has the Green Campus Initiative, and we are where we are, so we kind of lend ourselves to that student. If you're a student who you want to be job shadowing on Broadway, and probably don't want to come to Northern Maine. So having those, but I think a key thing is as you're going through the search process and maybe visiting schools and asking that, um, what do those institutions weigh in their process? And that can vary from school to school. Um, Academics is always going to be a thing, and a major component, and should be. But do they have certain programs of growth where they're targeting for growth? We're trying to double our production of engineers. That's a key strategic goal. And actually, I mentioned the Harold Alphon Foundation grant. We have some of that money is in challenge grants. So we have institutional goals of growing engineering. So, if we have students interested in that, are there potential scholarship opportunities that a university may have in order to support and draw as many students in certain programs that maybe aren't as top priority or a key strategic initiative at any given time? I can say that's one big thing for us right now is increasing our production of engineers. We also have a response. This is a state responsibility. We have a massive shortage of nurses in Maine. So our ability to be innovative in graduating nurses ready for the field. You want a 95% NCLEX pass rate for all your graduates every year, looking at different programs to graduate nurses off cycle. All colleges graduate nurses in May, but not a ton graduate them in December. Well, there's demand for nurses in December. And those are a couple big things. But I would say ultimately, get an understanding of the schools you're looking at. Here at Maine, we really value our campus culture and community. And so we put value on students who obviously are academically admissible and meet the minimum required coursework and that type of thing. But we want students who are coming here to get an education, not just a degree. I fully believe that looking at college as just a place to go get a diploma it would be falling short of what this experience should be for you. So we want students who are going to come to the institution, take their coursework seriously, but we have 200 clubs and organizations. So to see you involved in that, that's how you build your network. You want to graduate with a degree, with a resume. I think about my life, my kids, my spouse, my home, my career, like everything. I mean, I showed up in fall of 2006 as a first-year student from Dixfield, Maine, had no idea what I was getting into, and found my home. And that is because of getting involved outside the classroom. So we really like to see students who are admissible academically, but have a history of some extracurricular involvement with I think key priority on leadership roles. And I would say commitment to things over time. So I'd rather see a student who's involved in 2 or 3 things, freshman through senior year. That's a commitment over time. We love students who part-time work. We hold part-time work as one of the highest leadership things a student can have, because frankly, some students are in a position they have to do that. And so and sometimes they're nervous. I don't have a bunch of things. We hold that in extremely high regard at the University of Maine. You might have been played athletics. Were you a captain on those teams, or whatever? So we really like to emphasize students who are strong academically that also are going to show us that they want to be involved in the greater campus community as a whole.
Well, we appreciate that overview. I love how you talked about, first of all, for your own priorities, you're looking at engineering and nursing right now as a little bit more of a priority than perhaps it was in the past. I also appreciate how you talked about knowing students what you want. In other words, if you're thinking something like environmental studies, being in Northern Maine definitely makes sense. But, to use your example, if you want to be a Broadway actor, perhaps being in Northern Maine is not the best spot, right? So just being mindful of who you are and being true to that, and then finding the right fit for yourself. And I love how you talked about the importance of students not being bashful in terms of sharing if in fact they needed to work, because we always talk about how there's so much leadership that is learned in that work experience. But also, if you are working after high school, that might be the reason why you're not in 3 or 4 clubs like some other students may be. So those are great insights. And so, Chris, can you walk us through how the University of Maine reviews those applications? For example, do you assess students by high school, region, or even intended major? And how does this holistic process help shape your incoming class?
That's a great question. So I would say the process, it can vary program to program, probably more than anything. And we also, particularly for students from Maine, we really try to, and this I guess is where counseling can come in too. We try to read every application to the University of Maine from the perspective of granting an opportunity and pathway towards higher education. That may mean we don't admit a student, but we do follow up with students that we may deny admissions. Explain why. Those can be challenging conversations, but sharing, why and reasons for decisions, and offering thoughts on opportunities to address whatever a deficiency may be. Didn't have enough math units, whatever it is, it case by case basis. But I would say for us, a big thing is we really get segmented by program. And then we go from there. Nursing is the most competitive process. We have a core senior team that read nursing applications. We are entirely test optional at Maine. I would even say we exercise what I would call a no harm testing practice. And this is a tip for any listeners out there. When it comes to testing, I feel during COVID, pretty much everyone went away from them, at least on an interim basis. Some have brought them back. And ask really what a test optional status may mean, because optional might mean if we have them, we use them. They may use them for merit awards, but not admissions decisions. So really, whatever school a student's looking at, I'd really encourage them to get the nitty gritty on what their use of tests are. For us, we exercise what I call a no harm testing practice, where if we have a set of test scores that may negatively impact a decision, whether that be on admissibility or merit eligibility, we will not use them. We will allow the student's academic record to carry them for those purposes and act as if those tests don't even exist. So that's what we do. But we absolutely do consider intended major, school district, absolutely, particularly when it comes to eligibility for merit scholarships. And I'll explain in detail kind of how we do that. It's a little complicated, but we really are doing everything we can to try to offer dollars to support as many students in an equitable fashion. And I mean, we get applications here where, we'll get 16,000 applications in an admissions cycle at UMaine from every state. And particularly even in Maine, you talk about diversity of applications. We have rural school districts that'll graduate 17 kids in a senior class, literally. And then you'll have another one from Southern Maine that's much more populated. They graduate 350. Think about the amount of AP, honors, accelerated unit courses that are at one school that aren't going to be at another. And so what we'll do is we'll actually leverage a student's school and look at the profile and really look at, if a student is on a college prep curriculum, we also would have a college prep level, an honors level, or an AP, IB, or dual enrollment level type opportunity for merit dollars, looking at the rigorous student pursuit as well as their GPA. We will also look at percentage of opportunity taken advantage of. So a student who goes to a school district that only offers 2 honors courses, we may typically require a student who have taken 8 courses at that level to earn those next level awards. Well, they've taken advantage of 100% of the opportunity they had access to. We'll grant them an award on that higher scale. So we really do a lot of review from that perspective of looking to grant opportunity and grant students kind of the benefit of the doubt from an access perspective. So that's big for us. Another thing that I would say, especially for programs like nursing actually is unique in that it has some supplemental essay requirements in addition to the standard writing sample. So they have a choice of prompts that they look at. And I would say, particularly for nursing, they really are hoping to see students like indicating interest in the career. So they'll weigh experience. If a student, for instance, has done a CNA program, they may be at a tech high school or had access to that and they've done that, that's a slam dunk for them. Or if a student's maybe trying to become an EMT, that type of I'm getting real world related work experience in high school, that's a slam dunk for that program. And that program is extremely competitive, at least from our perspective. But that being said, when we do read a file, we will look to admit a student to their first choice. If they don't qualify for that, potentially because whatever reason, we would look at them for their second choice program indicated on their application if they've done so. If they aren't admissible for that, we would look to refer them to start potentially undecided within our College of Liberal Arts and Sciences. If that is not an option, then a student may not be granted admission, and then we would provide some type of follow-up feedback. And some of those tips, we really try to provide what I would say are pragmatic, real-world solutions to that. Like, I don't want to call a student and say, listen, we were unable to offer you admissions, best of luck. We were unable to offer you admissions because you didn't meet this requirement in math. And I know that you live near such and such community college. I looked ahead, and if you were to take their MAT 109, that would transfer as our MAT 106 college algebra. And, if you were to have at least this grade in that course, we'd admit you after one semester. Like, really give someone a boom, boom, boom path, if they're interested in hearing that. But I'd say that's really kind of our process. We are really committed to expediency in getting decisions out. It's tough on staff, it's tough on people, but we try to get a decision out to a student within 48 hours of their application being completed. That's our goal. And we were right around there this year, actually, pretty much for the duration of our cycle. So we exercise the mindset that these students have done everything they can do to show interest and ask for a decision. And we feel that it's in our best interest and their best interest to get them that decision and whatever merit eligibility they may have as soon as possible.
Well, that's definitely a unique, quick turnaround. Another thing that's unique, and I really love how you explain the follow-up with students who were rejected, just to give them some insight into why. I also appreciate how you talked about looking at the percentage of opportunity available to them at their high school and what percentage of that did they actually take advantage of. We hear about it all the time in the podcast episodes that applications are reviewed based on the context of your high school. So if you're looking, for example, for 8 honors opportunities, but the student's school only offers 2, you're going to look at that student differently compared to a student who had all the opportunities at their fingertips. I also appreciate you talking about schools that are entirely test optional and how you practice a no harm testing practice, but also that you ask the question, what about merit scholarships, right? Merit awards. So it's a good question for students and their families to ask when speaking to an admissions rep. You say you test optional. What about for your merit awards, right? And that might vary from school to school. And another thing that you said, and I want to repeat again because I think it's really important, if you're applying to a competitive program, students such as nursing, if you could demonstrate that you did something related to nursing, whether it was being an EMT throughout high school or any other real world application related to nursing, that is definitely going to help you in a competitive major because schools like the University of Maine, they want to admit you into those competitive majors, but they also want to ensure that you're going to stick with the program, eventually graduate and actually be a nurse. And so one indicator that you might be the right person is if you experienced it throughout high school and you're still pursuing it, that's something that may help you in the overall application process. So I really appreciate, Chris, all of those insights. And I want to ask about the common data set because I think it's something that's underutilized as a resource that frankly provides valuable insights into admissions trends and
Yeah,
student profiles. So do you think students and families should be using it in their college search? And if so, how can they interpret this information effectively?
that's a really great question. And I'll be honest, I think there's a lot of families they don't use it at all. I mean,
Right.
I think underutilizing is a generous term, John. um, so I think it is absolutely. We talk about the admissions funnel, right? And you know, wide at the top and narrowing at the bottom. And I think this decision process for students and families is much the same. Um, but yes, I definitely think that, you know, also having some honest assessments with yourself is key. So when you want to, if you're going to leverage, whatever data you can research at any institution, admissions practices, admit percentages, and whatever data you can even maybe get more granular with to start your process is big. For instance, you may find a school has a 75% or an 80% admit rate. A school like the University of Maine may find that overall because they are exercising, like, we're trying to grant as many pathways as possible to students. But their nursing program might have a 36% admit rate. So, you can be looking at that from your perspective and your interest, thinking, oh, 8 out of 10 are getting in. That may not be the case. You might be an engineer in a school, same thing. And it's like, it's actually more like 50%. So getting as much of that information, size is a big part of that. I think that's a relative question though, in terms of size. Like, we're 10,000 students at Maine. To me, coming from the small town of Dixfield, Maine, where I graduated with 71 or 72 students, this was the greatest university in terms of size and vastness that ever could have existed from my, at the time, worldview. We're a medium at best, I guess, in the grand scheme of things, as you know, John, from your professional perspective. So I think it's key. But I would take this a step further and try to highlight the opportunity that students have now. If there's one good thing that came out of COVID in our industry, there has been more investments from universities in terms of having virtual experience opportunities where students at distance who maybe are disadvantaged and can't travel to those locations or whatever are able to get some type of insight of what a place actually looks like or what it's like to be there. There's been more generated in that in the last 5 years than there was in the entirety of higher education prior. So whether that be virtual tours, virtual admissions counselor sessions with a professional, all those types of things, that really is something that students should take advantage of. And I think it's bringing to light, certainly for us, I mean, we have every state represented at this institution. That wasn't the case 7, 8 years ago. And I think part of it is because students are now able to actually explore beyond what was their historic perspective, because you can jump onto a website and not just, everyone's website has a beautiful picture on the homepage. I mean, if you go to ours, it looks like it's late September, early October, peak foliage all the time, right? And, we love that in Maine. But, there's so much more information out there that I think families really should take advantage of, that I think that also may be going underutilized because people just don't realize it exists.
And well, those are great points. And speaking of families, many of them, they reach out to me, one recently, very curious about the role of AI in college admissions. So, Chris, is AI currently used in any capacity at the University of Maine's application review process? And do you anticipate shifts in how technology might impact admissions decisions in the future?
So I can tell you, we don't use AI at all in our admissions process currently. Could that happen? Never say never, right? I do believe that I could see a situation for many colleges in which AI could absolutely be used for potentially interpreting transcripts. Um, if an institution maybe requires certain numbers of units to determine qualified students from an academic perspective, might that be used to streamline the review of academic documents that are submitted? I could see that absolutely happening, to provide part of a review process such that you're leveraging human capital to determine the human factors of an application, essays, personal statements, whatever. I could see that certainly happening, but that is a complex and ever evolving situation, maybe happening at some other schools already. But currently we don't use AI at all. We have people reading transcripts, counting units, looking at essays, kind of still a little old fashioned, I guess. Um, but I definitely see that as a potential situation coming. Another thing that AI may provide the opportunity, and I don't know, but it's something I do reflect on, is streamlining the process between high schools and colleges. Access to data. We have so many transcripts that are sent and uploaded and pretty significant infrastructure around that process. And I've often wondered if that might not leverage an opportunity to, could AI provide in process students in high school as they progress, freshman, sophomore, junior year, and accomplish certain academic accolades, complete certain courses, get certain grades. You may have students, many students, who are meeting minimum access academic requirements to a variety of schools well before their senior year. And might AI provide the opportunity to inform those students automatically as they meet certain academic thresholds that you've met the academic standards for X university? I definitely see a world where that's happening with, you see this wave of direct admissions programs and those types of things. I think I could see a world where AI is used as a tool to more expediently notify students of their opportunities of access to a variety of higher education facilities in years to come.
Yeah, I definitely see that as well. And, there's so much that we're doing with AI at the secondary level. And I agree with you. I think we've only scratched the surface in terms of what's to come in the next few years and even decades. But one area where you don't want to use AI, students, is to actually have it write your essay. And so, Chris, speaking of the essays, when we last spoke, we discussed the optional essay at the University of Maine.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen any standout essays recently, and what advice would you give students about whether or not they should submit one?
I think every student should submit one. I really do. And let me try to maybe deliver some perspective on things that are optional. When you apply to a college, you provide the information you choose to provide to a review committee that does not know you to determine your eligibility for their institution. So you opt to include whatever you want or not include what you don't want. So every time something's optional and you choose not to participate, I guess, fine, but that is a potentially lost opportunity to impact your decision. Think of it as an audition, if you will, for an institution. If you were auditioning for a band and you had the chance to sing 3 songs and you only sang 1 song, that might, if you knock it out of the park, great, you're all good. However, interviews are optional for us as well. We don't require them by any means. But for certain students who feel they want to meet and explain something in their academic record, I can tell you right now, there are students who get access to this school because they do that optional thing and provide some context and a little history that impacts our decision process at the time of review. Had they opted not to do that, there's a good chance they might not have been admitted. So I would encourage it for sure. I do not recommend students using Chat GPT to write a college essay. Even if it produces something that may fly and get you into college, let's say it does happen, that is not going to be a forever solution for you once you're on a campus of learning. So many students, I think, when they go from high school to college, they have what I call a cold water moment. If you go run and jump into like a lake in the wintertime and you have that gasp, that happens to the majority of students once they start their academic work in college. Everyone has that a little bit. Like, okay, this is a new level. So don't take things for granted up front. And we have some stellar essays that I've read over the years that are kind of legendary. And I some of them I really think some of the most impactful have been um, this one student from Massachusetts. She was applying to nursing, and she wrote an essay about her mother that I don't know, it touched my heart. And I have kids of my own, so I remember reading it and just thinking, man, I really hope my kids, when they're 17, 18, look at me the way this kid looks at their mom. And I can say that specific student she was a solid student, but she wasn't a slam dunk for nursing from an academic perspective. Make no mistake, that essay was a part of her admission to the nursing program, direct entrance, no doubt. I've had some students write some funny ones. One of the most legendary was a student wrote an essay called Raising Kids. And she was an incredible student, athlete, super involved in cheer, like competitive cheering, travel cheering. And she wrote an essay about raising 3 kids. And I was reading this, and I'm looking at all these things. I'm like, wait a second, like, is this 18-year-old has 3 children? Like, what is going on here? And I'm reading this essay, and she's talking about being up late at night and feeding her kids and this and that. And at the end of the essay, she wrote, I had no idea how much I'd learn about life when I started my mini goat farm. And if anyone doesn't get that, baby goats are called kids. And I'm reading it, and then the hook at the end, and I like started laughing. And that essay stopped the file review in our office because I made many members of my staff, I'm like, come read this essay. And everyone had the same reaction. They got down through it a couple paragraphs and like, oh my gosh, like this kid's how? I'm like, just finish it. So, if you can have that kind of impact, I'll never forget that essay. That's a win if you can write that. And I would just say to students out there, I hear this all the time. Well, students will say, there's nothing interesting about me. I don't know what to write about. It's just not true. It's not true. This is an opportunity to introduce who you are. And I'll talk to a student and they're like, oh, I don't really do anything. And, I like to go out, I do a lot out in nature, and I started, doing paintings out there, and I sell some of my paintings at the local market. And I'm like, so what I'm hearing is you're in high school and you're passionate about nature, and you're actually an artist, and you've already started your own business. That's pretty cool. And people tend to, I think, take for granted who they are, and not realize the uniqueness that they truly do have, and what makes them special. So like, share and realize that what you do is cool, and not everyone else does it.
Well, another thing that I think is really cool is that everything that you explain points back to the fact that there were real human beings, not AI, but
Yeah.
real human beings reading these essays. And so the essay about the cheerleader who had kids,
Yeah.
right? That's something that resonated with you,
Yeah.
I'm assuming years later. And so students, it's not so much about the topic, but it's how you use the topic to give insight in terms of who you are as a person, because that's not something that's so easily found on other parts of the application. The transcript obviously gives you the academics, the activities. Sure, talks a little bit about what you've done outside of the classroom, but that essay is really your opportunity to share something about yourself, again, not easily found in other parts. So we appreciate that. And let us a recommendation or another part which may give some insight in terms of who the student is outside of the class, and what perhaps even in the classroom. So, Chris, strong letters of recommendation, again, can really help bring that application to life. What qualities make a letter of recommendation particularly impactful at the University of Maine?
So I would say the strongest letters of recommendation typically are ones in which the person writing them are able to speak to a student's academic strength or promise, as well as their character. If you have an individual who can do both of those things, those usually seem to carry the most weight. And some tips for those, I would say, ask the people you're going to ask write your letters to do so early in the process. I'll share maybe a self-inflicting story here. When I was a senior in high school, the University of Maine had a December 15th, excuse me, early action deadline for applying at the time. It's December 1st now. But I can remember going to the principal at our high school, and I had got to know him really well. And I walked up to him on my way out of the school for Thanksgiving break to ask him hey, can you pipe off a letter of recommendation to the University of Maine for me? By the way, it has to get there by like the 14th of December. And like, bless Mr. Hart's heart. And, he got it done, but also provided a moment of mentorship, I guess, if you will, of how you should go about these things. But give them plenty of time and really think about the people you're going to ask to do it. You want to make sure that the people who do this are going to write you a genuine letter, and that's specific, that has, I guess, intentionality about sharing who you are. You don't want something that's just a bunch of fluff and kind words that talks a lot but says very little. You want someone to maybe write a specific story about maybe an impact you had on the school, or maybe they witnessed you go out of your way to support or help a classmate who was struggling with a topic, but you had a real good understanding of it. Those specific stories that are real, tangible, real examples of kind of your character can go a long way.
Well, we appreciate those insights, and bless your heart, Mr. Hart. I'm glad that he wrote that letter for you. I probably would have done the same thing, but also offered the student a little bit of a lecture in terms of giving people time to reflect and put together the best possible letter. So I appreciate you sharing that honest feedback there, Chris. And, with college affordability being such a big concern, Chris, can you highlight some of the best scholarship and financial aid opportunities at the University of Maine that students and their families should be aware of?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say a tip I will share is, I do believe, by and large, in higher education, the single greatest thing a student can do day to day while they're in high school to pay for their college education is to do well academically. There are very competitive merit scholarship programs at institutions, and your academic success is going to carry the weight in that assessment. So, I mean, we offer merit awards potentially up to full tuition and fees at UMaine. So, if a student always asks, what can I do to pay for my school? Like, when you get to school every day, like, take your studies seriously. I know that should be a simple concept, but it really is that important. One thing I would say too about us and how a unique practice we have, or maybe not unique, but not necessarily done by everyone, is we will allow students after admission to provide updated academic information for potential merit scholarship increases. So if a student has a 3.23 and we required a 3.25 or a better to be at a next band of merit scholarship, and they provide mid-year or third quarter grades or something like that, and their GPA has genuinely increased, we'll automatically increase their merit award to that new amount. You may find many schools that a merit offer is final at that time of admission, and that's just how they do things. We will allow the student to submit new information for potential merit increase, honestly, until the day they show up for class. So don't get your offer of admission at Maine and take your foot off the gas. You may have the opportunity to leverage additional scholarship dollars. For students in Maine, we have a promise program that Any Pell eligible student from the state of Maine can come to the university, and we will guarantee we'll find gift aid to cover their entire tuition and fee expense. What that looks like, I couldn't give you like an average example because I don't know that there is one. It may be a combination of state grant, institutional dollars, merit monies, whatever it is. But for Maine residents, any Pell eligible student at any level of Pell, not max Pell, any Pell eligible student can come to the institution for their entire tuition and fee expense covered with gift aid. And so we're really proud of that program. Out of state students, our merit scholarships, you know, they range drastically from $7,000 a year to potentially tuition and fees if a student is, a national merit semifinalist or something like that. But just based off like their grades, their GPA, and their rigor scores, you could have a student earn up to a $23,000, $24,000 a year merit scholarship. We do have some opportunities. I would say for us, one thing we do is our early action deadline of December 1st. We do have some scholarship eligibility that is what I would call fleeting. So any student looking at UMaine their senior year, there is absolutely additional scholarship opportunity to students who submit an application by the 1st of December. They may find themselves in a position of earning it case by case, but potentially up to $4,000 or $5,000 in additional annual merit money by applying by that date. So that's a big thing I tell students. But we really, really have a pretty complex and I would say very generous merit structure. It's kind of complicated. It takes time to interpret and times to really determine some of the eligibility. When I mentioned when you're leveraging GPA, but also rigor, but also context within a school, in terms of their access and type of things. But we feel really good about every student having a competitive offer to support their education here.
That's terrific. And I'm assuming that they could call your Office of Financial Aid and
Mhm.
maybe get some additional information because you definitely have some robust programs there when it comes to merit aid compared to many other schools. So I'm so happy that you shared, and you really shared a lot of great pieces of advice throughout the entire conversation. Chris, before we get to the end, I was curious, is there a question that I didn't ask and you wish I had, or frankly, a topic that didn't come up in the conversation yet that you'd like to share with us now?
I think one thing I would just say is that, you know, the type of student at Maine that thrives here, I would say is, we have so many different kinds of students, but I think the students that really just blossom are those who maybe don't have life planned out
Hmm.
or at least think they have a plan, but they're willing to reflect on it changing. I mean, when I came to UMaine, I thought I had everything planned. I really did. I thought I was going to be a dentist. I thought I was going to marry my high school sweetheart. And I thought I was going to have 2 golden retrievers. And honestly, John, I don't even have the breed of dog right from my 18-year-old plan. Like none of that panned out. And it was because, I was from a very small town, but coming here, I was willing to step outside my comfort zone and try new things. And so as students who come to UMaine, like come with a mind for exploring, come with a mind for trying new things. And I'll give you a secret. So many students, I think sometimes hold back. They're nervous. They think other people know what they're doing. I can assure you, none of them do. Like the students moving into school, they're brand new on campus. No one knows anything yet. No one knows anyone yet. Everyone's feeling maybe not as cool as they used to. Embrace it. Like just try, try clubs and organizations, meet as many people as you can, because there's more opportunity at this institution than you could ever fully take advantage of in 4 years. I don't care how much you try, you could never do it. And I think that's what's so exciting. So students who come with that mindset of, I want to continue trying new things. I'm going to get outside my comfort zone. The success that will line you up for your career and your life after college is profound. I mean, I'm the director of admissions here, but I can honestly say my career is because I became a campus tour guide while I was a student. I've actually worked in the same department, 37 years old, but I've worked in this department since I was 19.
Hmm.
I was an admissions tour guide, and I took that job because a friend of mine said, Chris, you'd be awesome at this. Like, you love it here. And I thought I'd walk around, it'd help me kind of stay in shape. I'd meet people, and I'd make a little spending money. That was it. That was the beginning, middle, and end of my scope of reasoning to take that job. And I literally still work. Ironically, some of the staff here, even one of the women in our department was actually the director at the time. She's transitioned into some different roles as she's progressed in her career. She signed my acceptance letter, and I work with her every day. And it's just so cool. And so I just say, like, to a student, if you come here, take your studies seriously, join every club you can, realize there's always someone new to meet, and it will exceed the most important expectations there are, and those are the ones that you have for yourself. And it worked for a hick kid like me from Dixie, Maine. It'll work for anybody.
Well, it's great advice. And the point is, it's not only about the academics, but get involved in the total school culture of whatever college or university you attend. There
Yeah.
you were, doing it for some extra money. You were a tour guide, and here you are years later, and you're the director of admissions. Chris, this was an awesome conversation. We were lucky to have you, as is the University of Maine. Unfortunately, it does bring us to the last question, which is, what are your top 3 pieces of advice for students and their families navigating the college admissions process?
Have open and honest communication. Um, that that is so critical for students and for parents. That would be number one. I'd say number two, have patience with each other. And number three, do everything you can to see every campus that's on your radar in person. The visit that you go to where you maybe are disappointed or let down or maybe hate a school, frankly, is as important as the visit where you fall in love with one. I can tell you, for me, I can remember a specific campus, and I thought it was the one. I don't know why. And I visited, and I remember thinking it just wasn't for me. I was a student who needed the natural world around me, and this school just wasn't in that type of location. I didn't even apply, but that was as important for me in my process as coming to UMaine and falling in love with it. So this can be a stressful time for parents. I'd say and to students, parents, your kid may be pursuing something you don't understand. Really hear them out. This is their process. Let them take leads. Take advantage of school resources you have within your district, counseling offices. I'd say to the students, if you have you're fortunate enough, you have, parents and people leading in and helping you in this process, like, give them some grace. They might be asking you 50 million questions and you're getting annoyed and you're rolling your eyes, but I try to deliver some perspective to students. This is, at least, especially as I become a parent, like, the day you were born, like, this is a message to students. Like, it's as if for your parents, suddenly, like, their heart is outside their body, like something essential to their life and their existence. And as you've grown, they've had less and less ability to, like, protect and control and take care of that. And now we're at that transaction of you leaving home and potentially going hundreds of miles away. And so that is the situation they're working through emotionally, mentally. So give them some grace, be patient with them, and also be thankful that you have that in your life and supporting you. Because I deal with many students every year who they wish they had that. So be patient, clear communication, take a breath, and you'll be good to go.
You'll definitely be good to go. And those are great pieces of advice. Be patient, stay together as a family, and you'll definitely find the right fit for you. Chris, this was awesome. I can't thank you enough. I'm definitely going to have you back again.
All
You were
right.
terrific, Chris. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it, John.
My pleasure. And to everyone out there, good luck with the college search. Take care all, and best wishes. Thank you for joining us on this episode of The CAP, the College Admissions Process Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, please don't forget to tell a friend and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and wherever you listen to your podcasts. I am your host, John Durante, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of The CAP. Thank you for listening to the College Admissions Process Podcast presented by Prep Expert. Prep Expert offers live online SAT and ACT courses with the best score guarantees, instructors, and curriculum. Go to prepexpert.com to guarantee your child's success.